The story of the UFC Seattle main event, the man that has seen it all and done it all, Henry Cejudo, Olympic gold medalist, bantamweight champion of the world in the UFC, flyweight champion of the world in the UFC, victories over the best bantamweight of all time, Dominick Cruz, victories over the best flyweight of all time, Demetrious Johnson. He has done it all, and he is back again. And in the blue corner, the man that is yet to reach the pinnacle of the sport, but is coming for everything that Henry Cejudo has worked for. And that man is Song Yadong. The 38-year-old Cejudo will enter this fight at UFC Seattle on a 2-fight skid since returning from retirement. And I just have to say it off the rip here. The retirement in May of 2020 for Henry Cejudo really altered his career in a negative way, and I think it shows. It was a premature retirement. He went right in his prime. What was that, nearly 5 years ago, when he would have just been 33 years old after coming off of a finish over Dominick Cruz, a finish over Marlon Moraes, a finish over TJ Dillashaw, a decision to become flyweight champion over Demetrious Johnson. That 4-fight run is what Henry Cejudo was on, and he retired right in his prime after those victories. And after nearly 3 years to the day from his retirement on May 9th of 2020, he returned from retirement May 6th of 2023 in a fight with Aljamain Sterling for the Bantamweight Championship, where it would go all 25 minutes and he would fall short on the judges' scorecards. That would be his lone fight in 2023, and then Henry would have one fight in all of 2024, and that was at UFC 298, where he would lose a decision to Merab Dvalishvili, the now bantamweight champion of the world, with one title defense under his belt. And now, nearly 1 year later, February 22nd, when he steps in the cage in Seattle, Washington, he will be back in 2025, still sitting at number 7 in the rankings somehow, some way, and he is taking on Song Yadong. At just 27 years old, Song Yadong already has 14 UFC bouts under his belt. He has amassed a 10-win to 3-loss record with 1 draw inside of the promotion since making his debut back in 2017 when he would have just been 20 years young. He's 21-8 overall, and he has showed a well-rounded skill set in pretty much every bout that he has had, and fight by fight, year by year, win or lose, Song Yadong continues to show improvements and evolutions in his game. Similar to Henry Cejudo, Song Yadong also only fought once in 2024, and it was at UFC 299 in March, where he would lose a decision to Petr Yan, who is surging at the moment on a 2-fight win streak over Song Yadong, and then in November over Deiveson Figueiredo, arguably the next number 1 contender in the bantamweight division. But prior to that loss to Petr Yan, Song Yadong had a 2-0 year in 2023 with victories over Chris Gutierrez and a TKO domination over Ricky Simón, who's also competing at UFC Seattle this Saturday. And the other losses in his UFC career, Corey Sandhagen, one of the best bantamweights in the world, and back in 2021 he lost to Kyler Phillips, who has also went on to have a very successful career. Those two have kind of both rose around the same time as one another. 4 years ago, Kyler Phillips got the better of them. Now, if they were to fight present day, who knows what could happen. And let's not forget, in May of 2020, when Song Yadong would have been, 22, 23 years old, he got a victory over Marlon Chito Vera. He's beaten Marlon Moraes. He's beaten Ricky Simón, as previously mentioned. He has great victories already at such a young age of 27 years old. The future is bright. The ceiling is high. I truly am a believer in Song Yadong, as are the odds makers heading into this, as he is a heavy favorite over the former Olympic gold medalist and 2-time champion, 2-weight champion, should I say, Henry Cejudo. That run that Cejudo had between September of 2017 and May of 2020 truly is an all-time run for the lower weight classes. He solidified himself as potentially the number 2 flyweight in history. I will say Alexandre Pantoja takes that in my book, but you could make the argument that Cejudo is still at number 2, and then goes up a weight class to become a simultaneous 2-weight champion, wins the title there, and defends it. So he's one of a very, very few that actually defended the belt in both weight classes while being a 2-time 2-weight champion. And so I just wish that Henry, A, would have never retired in May of 2020, and who knows what he could have went on to do, or B, just never returned from retirement, as he had accomplished all that there was to accomplish, but he did neither of those. He returned and has went 0-2 since returning and has paid the price for that decision. But can he right the ship before it's too late? Because I believe that if he loses this one here in the UFC Seattle main event to someone much younger than him, 11 years, and a surging prospect who does have great wins, but doesn't quite hold the name value as a Merab and an Aljo do. This could be the end of the road for good this time for Henry Cejudo if he doesn't pick up a win. And obviously, this would be the biggest win of Song Yadong's career, hands down, bar none. He could add another big name to his resume. They both sit respectively at 8 for Song and 7 for Cejudo in the bantamweight rankings. So a victory here for either man puts them in contention to be one win away from a title shot, but I think especially on the side of Song Yadong, get rid of that loss that happened in 2024, and at just 27, not even in his prime yet, still has so many big fights ahead of him, in my opinion. And from an X's and O's perspective, well, I already touched on how well-rounded Song Yadong is. In the grappling and in the striking realm, he has showed strengths in all areas of mixed martial arts. Now, of course, he's not going to want to go toe-to-toe with Henry Cejudo in a wrestling match, someone who's won a gold medal in wrestling before in Cejudo at the Olympic Games. But I do feel that Song Yadong can compete in the grappling if it goes there, and more importantly, I think he can fend off the takedowns of Henry Cejudo, which would be a game changer in this fight. And it's a game changer because we know that's exactly what Henry is going to look to do, and if it's a striking match, if Cejudo can't get Song Yadong down to the mat, it's going to be a very long 25 minutes, as I believe Song Yadong possesses the capabilities on the feet to piece Henry Cejudo apart for 5 rounds, and maybe even get a finish in this fight. Now, maybe the wide stance karate base of Cejudo will pose some questions and concerns for Song Yadong, as he has yet to fight someone like that. However, he's fought someone long and rangy and awkward in the striking before in Corey Sandhagen, and I guess you could say it didn't go so well for Song Yadong as he got pieced up in that fight where he lost to Sandhagen. Maybe that's something that Henry Cejudo has taken a look at, has taken notes on, as he is in one of the best camps going today in the United States. Maybe he picks up on some of the things that Corey Sandhagen was putting down, and he can right the wrongs before it's too late and have one last swan song into title contention. But give me your thoughts and your predictions for this UFC Seattle main event in the comments below. Will Henry Cejudo end his 2-fight skid, bounce back, or will Song Yadong bounce back from his lone loss in 2024 and pick up the biggest win of his career? And now that we are done with the main event discussion, let's jump into the rest of the card before we head on out of here today. And it starts in the co-main event as the middleweight marathon continues. This time it's Brendan Allen and Anthony Fluffy Hernandez 2. Yes, you heard me right. This isn't the first time that Brendan Allen and Anthony Fluffy Hernandez have squared off, as you have to go way back 7 moons ago to January of 2018, where they headlined an LFA event, LFA 32, January 26, 2018, where Anthony Hernandez won the 5-round decision over Brendan Allen. So he's one up on the scorecards officially for one another. Can he go 2-0 and launch himself into the top 10? And since that first meeting back at LFA 32 between Brendan Allen and Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, both have went on to have insane amounts of success. For Brendan Allen, he has had 19 fights over the last 7 years since their fight and recorded a record of 16 victories and only 3 defeats. That includes an 11-3 record in the Ultimate Fighting Championship and a 7-fight win streak from February of 2022 up until April of 2024. However, we would see Brendan Allen compete in September of 2024, where he would lose that win streak and it would be snapped by the now number 1 ranked middleweight in the world, Nassourdine Imavov, who just finished Israel Adesanya back at UFC Saudi Arabia to start off February. And for Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, since his victory over Brendan Allen back in 2018, he has fought 10 times, recording a record of 7 victories, 2 defeats, and 1 no contest. As a matter of fact, his very next fight in June of 2018, after beating Brendan Allen, was on Dana White's Contender Series in a fight where he would get the victory over Jordan Wright, but ultimately it would be overturned to a no contest. And then in February of 2019, when he would make his official debut in the UFC, he would lose to Marcus Perez via submission. Then he would bounce back in his second fight and get a victory, but then lose again in his third fight. So started out his UFC career 1-2. And that second loss was to Kevin Holland back in May of 2020. But since then, Fluffy has not looked back, as he has tallied off 6 consecutive victories, all 6 of them by way of stoppage. His biggest wins yet came last year in 2024 as he would finish Roman Kopylov via submission and thereabout back at UFC 298, and then Anthony would have his first ever UFC main event opportunity where he would dominate Michel Pereira up until getting the finish via TKO in round number 5. Brendan Allen currently sits at number 9 in the middleweight division. Anthony Hernandez currently sits at number 12. Some would say this is the perfect storm, the perfect chance for this rematch to take place, as both men are looking to continue climbing the middleweight ranks and the best point of the 185-pound division's history throughout the UFC. I feel like I've talked about ad nauseum the middleweight division throughout the entire month of February, as we have had 3 straight main events in this division leading into UFC Seattle, and while we aren't getting a main event this weekend, we are getting a co-main event between 2 more top 15 ranked fighters. This division is truly churning, and these 2 are fighting to get huge victories and remain relevant in this insane portion of 2025 for the middleweight division. And both of these guys are so well versed on the ground, but in different ways, as Anthony Hernandez looks to drown his opponents, make them tired, make them wilt under his pressure before looking for the finish, whereas Brendan Allen likes to get in and get out as quickly as possible with his insane jiu-jitsu skills. However, I don't foresee Brendan Allen offensively looking to take Anthony Hernandez down here, and that is because I believe he is the better fighter when this fight is on the feet. So if Brendan can keep it standing, I look for him to get the upper hand in this one, but that is a tall task, as Anthony Hernandez does not get tired. So even if we see Brendan Allen have success in that first round, that doesn't mean that Anthony can't come back in rounds 2 and 3 until Brendan Allen himself gets exhausted. I want to know what you think about this rematch, 7 years in the making, and how you feel about it with the current standing of the middleweight division and all of the moving pieces going on. You don't want to get left behind here if you're Brendan Allen and if you're Anthony Hernandez. A win sets you up for a big remainder of 2025 with all of these puzzle pieces going on right now at 185 pounds. While we no longer get Dominick Cruz in the main event against Rob Font due to Dominick Cruz dislocating his shoulder for the second time in 8 months, forcing him to retire early in what was supposed to be his retirement swan song against Rob Font in the original main event of UFC Seattle, Rob Font will, however, stay on the card, and on short notice, he will be taking on the 16-0 Gene Matsumoto. Rob Font is looking to extend his momentum that he garnered in 2024 with a decision victory over Kyler Phillips, and in order to do so, he will have to be the first man to ever defeat Gene Matsumoto. The 25-year-old 16-0 Matsumoto is 2-0 since joining the UFC, both of those fights in 2024, a submission over Dan Argueta and a decision over Brad Katona most recently in October. Prior to that, he was on the 2023 season of Dana White's Contender Series, so a huge opportunity here for Gene, but also a very big step up in competition against someone like Rob Font, who was already in a training camp for this card and has fought some of the best fighters in the bantamweight division today. And prior to 2024, Rob Font was on a stretch where he had lost 4 out of 5 fights between December of 2021 and December of 2023. So like I said, he wants to continue that momentum that he gained in 2024 and not look back and still find a way to build himself up in this ultra-stacked bantamweight division where he currently finds himself number 9 in the world. We've got an absolute banger in the featherweight division as Jean Silva is back and looks to make good on his UFC run in 2025 after a 3-0 year in 2024. Coming from the Fighting Nerds camp, he will be taking on Melsik Baghdasaryan. It's safe to say the Fighting Nerds are one of the biggest talking points of 2024, with guys like John Silva, Caio Bahayo, and Carlos Prates taking the world by storm, all going undefeated in 2024, 2 of the 3 crashing into the top 15, and should John Silva get a victory at UFC Seattle, he may find himself in the featherweight top 15. 28 years old, 14-2 overall with 13 finishes, he has not lost a fight since April of 2018, nearly 7 years ago now, and can he improve to 4-0 in the UFC, and can he even tag on another finish victory while he's at it? And the 33-year-old Melsik Baghdasaryan is no slouch, as he is 8-2 overall in his career and has a great UFC record, 3-1 plus a victory on the 2020 season of Contender Series, but that's the problem. He fought on the Contender Series in 2020 and has had 4 fights in the UFC since. 2 fights in 2021, 2 fights in 2023, no fights in 2022, and no fights in 2024. So the last time that we saw Baghdasaryan fight was in July of 2023, where he got a decision victory over Tucker Lutz. Gotta mention the top 15 light heavyweight in the world, Alonzo Menifield, looking to hold his spot at 37 years old, and he is taking on short notice replacement and UFC debutant Julius Walker, who crowns himself as the best basketball player in UFC history, fun fact. For Menifield, he has a 15-5 record with 1 draw, finished 13 of his 15 victories, been finished in 3 out of 5, but he's coming off of an 0-2 year in 2024 with knockout losses to Azamat Murzakanov in August and a knockout loss to Carlos Alberg in May, who's absolutely surging right now, 6-7 wins in a row? But before his bad 2024, Alonzo Menifield hadn't lost a fight since December of 2021, going 5 consecutive bouts without a loss. I say without a loss because he had a draw with Jimmy Crute in February of 2023. He bounced back by finishing him in July of that same year, got a decision over Dustin Jacoby to cap off 2023, and had 2 finished victories over Misha Serkinov and Askar Mozarov in 2022. But at 37 years old and on back-to-back knockout losses, he has to bounce back here in a big way. Julius Walker will enter this fight 12 years younger than Alonzo at just 25 years young, 6-0 with a 100% finish rate, 4 knockouts, and 2 submissions. 5 of those 6 finishes have come in the first round and 1 in the second round, and his most recent fight was at Peak Fighting 41 in December, where he got a TKO 1 minute and 58 seconds in. And I will say he's not much of an underdog, even though he lacks a lot of experience as compared to Menifield. Which way will you lean in this one? The veteran in Alonzo or the newcomer in Walker? We've got to mention the 27-year-old 7-0 Mansur Abdul-Malik. 6 knockouts, 1 submission, made good on his UFC debut back in November with a first-round knockout over Dusko Todorovic. He is a Contender Series alum in 2024 as well, literally in August, and then made his debut in November. This guy is a legitimate prospect to watch out for in this middleweight division. 6'2", long, rangy, and powerful. He's taking on the 6-1 Nick Klein, who has only gone the distance once in his 7-fight professional career, and he's also a 2024 Contender Series alum. However, this will be his debut after his October victory where he got a first-round submission in just 37 seconds. Ricky Simón is back and looking to end his 3-fight losing streak. In order to do so, he will have to take on and defeat Javid Basharat. May of 2020 to July of 2022, War Ricky was on a war path, having won 5 fights in a row, but dating back to April of 2023 until June of 2024, 3 straight losses, 2 decisions, Vinicius Oliveira and Mario Bautista, and a finish loss to the aforementioned Song Yadong in this weekend's main event. I'm still a believer in War Ricky Simón, as he is just 32 years old, right in his prime years, but this is a now or never moment for him. He has to bounce back, and he has to do it right now in his home state of Washington. And Javid Basharat, one half of the Basharat brothers with him and his brother Fareed. He is 3-1 in the UFC thus far with a no contest. However, that one loss came in 2024, his only fight in that calendar year, where he would lose a decision to Ayman Zahabi, who is surging right now and cracked into the top 15 to finish off 2024. And last but not least, this is literally hot off the presses as of when I'm recording this on Tuesday. Austin Vanderford, the former Bellator title challenger turned LFA alum, Paige Van Zandt's husband, Mr. Van Zandt is what he calls himself. He has been signed to the UFC and on 4 days' notice will make his debut at UFC Seattle. His last fight was in LFA, as I mentioned, and that was in October of 2024, where we got a first-round TKO victory. Prior to that, had lost back-to-back fights against Aaron Jeffrey and Gegard Mousasi. That one was for the championship. Both of those were in 2022, so no fights in 2023 for Austin. And bear with me as I say his opponent's name. He is taking on Nikolay Veretennikov. He is 12-5 with 10 finishes to his name. He's 0-1 in the UFC as he made his debut in August and lost a split decision to Danny Barlow. Prior to that, though, had won quite a bit, 3 in a row. He also competed on the 2021 season of the Contender Series where he would lose to Michael Morales, who is an undefeated phenom right now in the welterweight division. So had to mention that one, especially on the side of Austin Vanderford, as he has always had a lot of hype behind him, and now he gets his chance to crack into the UFC and make a statement on short notice. So that is it for UFC Seattle. Feel free to give me your predictions for the card in the comments below alongside with your bets. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please be sure to drop a like. If you are new, subscribe to the channel as it helps the show grow. Obviously, we are continuing to approach and climb toward the 1,000 subscriber mark in 2025. You can join the community on social media at Verbal Spar MMA on X, Instagram, and TikTok, and you can follow on your favorite audio listening platforms such as Spotify and Apple, where podcast episodes release there every Monday and Friday. Have a great weekend, enjoy the fights, and I will see you in the next video.